He had millions in the bank, but dressed like he was broke. She was fighting to save her brother's life, one sale at a time. When a shabby stranger walked into the city's most exclusive car dealership, neither expected their worlds to collide.
Perhaps I can show you something more suitable for your needs? We have some excellent vehicles in our pre-owned section.
Sometimes we hide what we truly want, or who we truly are.
She thought he was just another dreamer wasting her time. He thought she was just another person who only saw appearances. But when he returned the next day as the dealership's newest millionaire investor, everything changed.
Why didn't you tell me who you were?
Would it have mattered?
Suddenly, the woman who needed his money to save her brother's life found herself falling for the man behind the disguise. But in a world where love and money collide, can two people who've been hiding their true selves find something real? Will Clara choose love over survival? And will Lucas risk his heart after 10 years of hiding from the world? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The morning sun shone through the dusty blinds of Lucas Brando's modest apartment. At 29, Lucas was worth millions, but you'd never know it by looking at his home. The small one-bedroom apartment was furnished with second-hand items, nothing fancy or expensive, just the way he wanted it. Lucas sat on the edge of his bed and stared at the framed photo of his parents. 10 years had passed since the plane crash that took them away and left him with more money than he knew what to do with. 10 years of hiding who he really was. "I think it's time, Mom and Dad," he whispered to the photo. "Time to stop hiding." He ran his hand through his unkempt dark hair and sighed. The weight of isolation had become too heavy to bear. For a decade, he'd lived like a ghost, afraid that people would only see his bank account, not the person he was inside. Lucas had learned that lesson the hard way. Right after his parents died and the news of his inheritance hit the papers, suddenly everyone wanted to be his friend. Girls who never gave him a second glance were calling him. Business opportunities appeared from nowhere. The sharks circled, sensing fresh blood in the water. So he disappeared, changed his phone number, moved to a different part of town, started living like an ordinary guy with an ordinary job and an ordinary life. But today was different. Today, he was taking a step back into the world. Lucas pulled on a pair of worn jeans with a small tear at the knee and a plain grey t-shirt. He slipped his feet into old sneakers with mud still caked on the sides from his last hike. No watch on his wrist. He hadn't worn one since the day of the funeral. Time had stood still for him that day, and somehow not wearing a watch became his small rebellion against moving forward. As he walked to his car, a 15-year-old Sedan N with fading paint, Lucas felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. Today's mission was simple but significant. He was going to buy himself a new car. Not just any car, but the exact model his father had always dreamed of owning. It wasn't about showing off, it was about closure. Across town, Clara Dantas was already on her third cup of coffee. At 27, she was the top salesperson at Elite Motors, the most exclusive car dealership in the city. Her sleek black pantsuit and crisp white blouse were as impeccable as her sales record. "You look tired," remarked Sophia, her only real friend at work, as Clara checked her makeup in the bathroom mirror. "Miguel had a rough night," Clara replied, referring to her younger brother. "His medication is making him sick again." What Clara didn't say was that she'd been up until 3 a.m. researching alternative treatments for Miguel's condition. Treatments their insurance rants wouldn't cover. Treatments she somehow needed to find money for. "How much more do you need for that special treatment?" Sophia asked quietly. Clara applied another coat of mascara to hide the redness in her eyes. "Another 30,000. I'm about halfway there." "That's why you put up with Roger's garbage," Sophia stated, rather than asked. Clara's jaw tightened at the mention of her boss. Roger Mendez was the dealership manager, a man who wore his authority like an expensive cologne, too much and all wrong. He had made it clear from day one that Clara's continued employment and advancement depended on more than just her sales numbers. "I put up with Roger because this job pays better than anywhere else," Clara said firmly. "And Miguel needs that money." The bathroom door swung open, and as if summoned by the mention of his name, Roger appeared. He frowned at seeing the women talking. "This isn't social hour, ladies," he said, his eyes lingering inappropriately on Clara. "There's a floor meeting in 5 minutes, don't be late." After he left, Sophia rolled her eyes. How is he allowed in the women's bathroom? "Because his father owns the dealership," Clara replied, putting away her makeup. "Come on, let's go before he finds another reason to dock our commissions." The sales floor was buzzing with activity as the team gathered for the morning meeting. Elite Motors wasn't just any car dealership. It specialized in rare, imported luxury vehicles with price tags that made most people's jaws drop. The showroom gleamed with polished marble floors and crystal chandeliers, looking more like a palace than a place to buy cars. Roger stood at the front, his expensive suit tailored to hide his growing midsection. "Listen up, everyone. We have some very important clients coming in this week. The Monaco shipment arrived yesterday, which means we have 3 Aventador SVJs on the floor. These babies sell themselves, so try not to mess it up." His eyes fixed on Clara. "Dantas, I'm assigning you to the blue one. It's the most expensive, and you seem to have a way with the rich guys." There were a few snickers from the male salespeople. Clara kept her expression neutral, though inside she was seething. She knew what they all thought, that she used her looks to make sales. None of them wanted to admit that she simply worked harder, knew the products better, and actually listened to what clients wanted. "The rest of you check the assignment board. And remember, no tire kickers. If they can't afford it, don't waste your time, move them along quickly and politely." As the meeting broke up, Roger caught Clara's arm. "I need you to stay late tonight. We need to discuss your performance review." Clara pulled her arm away. I have to pick up my brother from therapy." Roger's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Family is important, of course, but so is career advancement. Think about it." He walked away, leaving Clara feeling like she needed another shower. Sophia gave her a sympathetic look. "Want me to stay with you if you have to stay late?" "No," Clara said, straightening her shoulders. "I can handle Roger. Besides, today is going to be a good day. I can feel it." If only she knew how wrong she was. Lucas pulled into the Elite Motors parking lot and sat in his car for a moment, gathering his courage. The dealership was intimidating, with its glass walls and perfect lighting showcasing cars that cost more than most houses. This was the place his father had talked about visiting someday, when his business finally took off. That day never came. Now Lucas was here instead, ready to fulfill that small dream on his father's behalf. He got out of his car, noticing how out of place it looked among the Mercedes and BMWs in the customer parking area. Lucas didn't bother fixing his rumpled shirt or combing his hair. He was tired of pretending. If they judged him by his appearance, so be it. As Lucas pushed through the glass doors, he was hit by the scent of leather and new cars. Classical music played softly in the background. A young man in a suit approached him immediately, then hesitated to king in Lucas's casual appearance. "Can I help you?" the salesman asked, his tone suggesting he doubted Lucas could afford even the floor mats of these cars. "I'm just looking around," Lucas replied, moving past him toward the main showroom area. The salesman didn't follow. Instead, he made eye contact with a colleague and twirled his finger near his temple, suggesting Lucas might not be all there. Lucas pretended not to notice. He was used to being dismissed based on appearances. For years, it had been his shield, his way of filtering out the phonies. Today, though, it stung a little more than usual. He wandered through the showroom, hands in his pockets, until he saw it, a sleek blue sports car positioned on a rotating platform under perfect lighting. It was exactly like the model car his father had kept on his desk. The real thing was even more beautiful. Lucas approached it slowly, mesmerized by the curves and details. He reached out to touch the hood, but stopped himself. "It's something, isn't it?" Lucas turned to find a woman watching him. Unlike the other salespeople who had ignored him, she had approached directly. Her dark hair was pulled back in a professional style, and her eyes were sharp and intelligent. Her name tag read, Clara Dantas. "It's beautiful," Lucas said simply. Clara nodded, studying him. She needed this sale, and while this guy didn't look like he could afford it, her instincts told her not to dismiss him outright. "It's the Aventador SVJ, only 50 were made in this color." "How much?" Lucas asked, circling the car slowly. 3.2 million, Clara replied, watching for his reaction. Lucas didn't flinch at the price. He just nodded thoughtfully. Clara's assessment shifted. Maybe he was a trust fund kid with bad fashion sense. Those types sometimes had money to burn. "Would you like to sit inside?" Lucas looked surprised by the offer. "Can I?" "That's what it's here for," Clara said with a professional smile, opening the driver's side door for him. Lucas slid into the leather seat, his hands gripping the steering wheel lightly. Clara noticed his hands were rough, not the manicured hands of someone who'd never worked a day in his life. "Interesting. How does it feel?" she asked. "Like coming home," Lucas whispered. But then Kao got himself. "It's nice." Clara handed him a brochure. "Take your time. I'll be right over there if you have questions." As she walked away, Roger appeared beside her. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "That guy is wasting your time. Look at him, no watch, dirty shoes. He's probably just here to take selfies in cars he'll never afford." Clara glanced back at Lucas, who was reading the brochure with intense concentration. "I'm not so sure. Something about him, I don't pay you to follow hunches," Roger cut her off. "The Pattersons are coming in an hour to look at that exact car. Get him out of there before he scuffs the leather." Clara felt her face flush with embarrassment and anger. "Fine." She walked back to Lucas, who was now out of the car and looking under the hood. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her tone cooler now. "We actually have a client coming to see this particular vehicle. Perhaps I can show you something more suitable for your needs?" Lucas caught her meaning immediately. He saw the shift in her demeanor and recognized the influence of the man in the expensive suit watching them from across the showroom. "What would you recommend for my type?" Lucas asked, his voice calm but with an edge. Clara felt a twinge of guilt at his directness. "Perhaps something in our pre-owned section? We have some excellent vehicles there that offer great value." Lucas closed the hood gently. "I see." He didn't argue or make a scene. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out a napkin from a coffee shop, and quickly sketched something on it with a pen he borrowed from a nearby desk. Clara watched, confused, as he handed her the napkin. On it was a surprisingly good sketch of the blue car they'd just been discussing. "Sometimes we hide what we truly want, or who we truly are," Lucas said quietly. "Thank you, for your time, Ms. Dantas." Before Clara could respond, Lucas walked out of the dealership, leaving her holding the napkin and feeling like she'd just made a terrible mistake. Roger approached immediately. "Good job getting rid of him. These dreamers waste everyone's time." Clara stared at the napkin in her hand, at the detailed sketch that somehow captured not just the car's lines, but its essence. "I think I just made a mistake." The only mistake would have been wasting more time on him. Roger dismissed her concern. "Now go prepare for the Pattersons, their actual buyers." Clara tucked the napkin into her pocket, unable to shake the feeling that she'd just missed something important. She had no idea that her life was about to change completely, that the man she'd just dismissed would return tomorrow in a very different capacity. And by this time tomorrow, nothing at Elite Motors would ever be the same again. Clara barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the quiet disappointment on the face of the man from the dealership. The sketch he'd drawn was now pinned to her refrigerator. She couldn't explain why she'd kept it, but something about the encounter had left her unsettled. Her tiny apartment was quiet, except for the soft wheezing coming from her brother's room. Miguel's condition had worsened over the past year, and the treatments were draining her savings faster than she could replenish them. "Another sleepless night?" Miguel asked, appearing in the hallway in his wheelchair. At 21, he had the same dark eyes as Clara, but a gauntness to his face that spoke of his ongoing illness. "Just thinking about work," Clara replied, pouring him a glass of juice. "How are you feeling today?" Miguel shrugged. "The usual. Like I swallowed a bag of rocks." He wheeled himself to the table. "So, what happened at work? You've been distracted since you got home." Clara hesitated. "I think I misjudged someone. A customer." "You? The great reader of people?" Miguel teased. "Ha ha," Clara rolled her eyes. "It's just, this guy came in, dressed like he couldn't afford a bicycle, let alone a multi-million-dollar car. My boss pushed me to get rid of him, and I did. But there was something about him." "Was he cute?" Miguel grinned. Clara threw a dish towel at him. That's not the point. He left me this strange message about hiding who we truly are and a drawing of the car. Sounds mysterious, Miguel said. Maybe he'll come back. I doubt it, Clara sighed. I wasn't exactly welcoming. Miguel squeezed her hand. Don't be too hard on yourself. You've got a lot on your plate because of me. Don't start that again, Clara warned. You're my brother. Your health is the most important thing. More important than your dignity, than standing up to that creep, Roger, Miguel challenged. Clara busied herself washing the breakfast dishes. Let's not talk about Roger. You can't keep letting him pressure you, Clara. I know he's holding that promotion over your head. The promotion means better health insurance, Clara reminded him, and a significant raise. That treatment you need isn't getting any cheaper. Miguel looked away, guilt written across his face. Sometimes I think, don't, Clara interrupted firmly. We're in this together. Now let's get you ready. We need to leave for your therapy session in 20 minutes. As she helped her brother get dressed, Clara tried to push thoughts of the mystery customer out of her mind. She had more important things to worry about than a man with no watch and sad eyes. The mood at Elite Motors the next morning was electric with tension. Roger had called an Emerge NC staff meeting before the doors opened. Listen up, everyone. Roger's voice was higher than usual. Antonio Vega is coming today. A murmur ran through the assembled sales staff. Antonio Vega was the CEO of Vega Motors, the manufacturer of the luxury cars they sold. He rarely made personal appearances at dealerships. This is not a drill, people, Roger continued, wiping sweat from his forehead. Mr. Vega called personally. He's coming for an inspection. Everything needs to be perfect. Clara, you're our top seller. I want you to handle Mr. Vega when he arrives. Clara nodded, surprised by the assignment. Normally, Roger kept her away from the VIPs, preferring to take those opportunities himself. Why is he coming? Sophia whispered to Clara. No idea, Clara replied. But Roger looks terrified. Indeed, Roger was pacing nervously, barking orders at the cleaning staff. Polish those door handles again. I want to see my reflection in them. The next 2 hours were a flurry of activity. Every surface was cleaned, every car positioned just so. Roger changed his tie 3 times, never satisfied with the color. At precisely 10 o'clock, a fleet of black SUVs pulled into the parking lot. The staff gathered in a line just as Roger had instructed. Back straight, smiles on, Roger hissed as the doors to the main vehicle opened. First to emerge was a tall, distinguished man with silver hair and an impeccable suit. Antonio Vega had the confident air of someone who had built an empire from the ground up. That's him, whispered Sophia unnecessarily. But it was the second person who stepped out that made Clara's heart stop. It was the man from yesterday, the one in the worn jeans and muddy shoes. Except today, he was wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit, his hair neatly styled, his posture radiating quiet confidence. Fairto, no way, Clara breathed. Roger rushed forward, hand extended. Mr. Vega, what an honor to have you visit our humble dealership. We're so... Antonio Vega shook his hand briefly. Roger Mendez, I've heard much about you. His tone suggested what he'd heard wasn't entirely positive. Allow me to introduce Lucas Brando, our newest investor. Roger's smile froze as he turned to Lucas. Welcome to Elite Motors, Mr. Brando. Have you visited us before? Lucas's eyes found Clara's in the lineup of staff. Once, he said simply. Yesterday, in fact. Roger's face went pale as realization dawned. He shot a panicked glance at Clara. Antonio continued, oblivious to the tension. Lucas has made a significant investment in our company and will be overseeing some changes in how our dealerships operate. He was particularly interested in visiting this location. Lucas stepped forward. I'd like a tour, if that's possible. Of course, Roger sputtered. I'd be happy to show you around. Personally, Antonio shook his head. I'll be taking the tour with you, Roger. Lucas expressed interest in speaking with your sales team individually, starting with... He checked a note. Clara Dantas. Clara felt all eyes turn to her. Her mouth went dry. Ms. Dantas, if you wouldn't mind showing Mr. Brando our inventory, Antonio suggested. Clara stepped forward, struggling to maintain her professional composure. "It would be my pleasure, sir." As Anton, Io, and Roger moved toward the offices, Lucas approached Clara. Up close, she could see the difference between yesterday's Lucas and today's. It wasn't just the clothes. There was an openness to his expression that hadn't been there before. "Ms. Dantas," he said formally, extending his hand. Clara shook it, noting his firm grip. "Mr. Brando, you're full of surprises. Do you still believe people can only be who they appear to be?" Lucas asked quietly, echoing the message he'd left her. Clara felt heat rising to her cheeks. "I think I owe you an apology for yesterday." "Walk with me," Lucas said, gesturing toward the showroom. "And no apologies necessary, you were doing your job." They moved toward the blue car that had been the center of yesterday's interaction, now away from the ears of the other staff members, who were watching with undisguised curiosity. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" Clara asked when they were alone. Lucas ran his hand along the car's hood. "Would it have mattered?" "Of course it would have," Clara replied immediately. "That's exactly why I didn't tell you," Lucas said, his eyes meeting hers. "I wanted to be treated like everyone else." Clara laughed shortly. "Like everyone else? You were treated worse than everyone else because of how you looked. And that revealed the truth about this place." Lucas nodded. "Which is precisely what I needed to know before investing." Clara felt a chill. "Are you here to get me fired? Because I didn't roll out the red carpet for a millionaire in disguise?" Lucas looked genuinely surprised. "Fired? No, quite the opposite." Before he could explain further, Roger appeared, looking anxious. "Everything going well here?" His voice was unnaturally high. "Perfectly," Lucas replied coolly. "Ms. Dantas and I were just discussing customer service philosophy." Roger laughed nervously. "Clara is our top salesperson, always looking out for our best customers." He emphasized the word best while shooting Clara a warning look. "Interesting," Lucas said. "In my experience yesterday, it seemed your policy was to judge customers by their appearance rather than their intentions. Isn't that right, Ms. Dantas?" Clara froze. She was trapped between telling the truth and protecting her job. Roger jumped in. "There must have been a misunderstanding. We would never— I wasn't speaking to you." Lucas cut him off, his voice suddenly hard. "I was asking Ms. Dantas." Clara took a deep breath. "Yes, we're encouraged to focus our attention on clients who look the part." Roger's face turned an alarming shade of red. "That's not our official policy. Clara is misrepresenting—" "Thank you for your honesty," Lucas interrupted, speaking to Clara but looking at Roger. "That's all for now, Mr. Mendez. I'd like to continue my conversation with Ms. Dantas privately." Roger looked like he wanted to protest but thought better of it. He retreated, throwing Clara a look that promised consequences later. When they were alone again, Lucas sighed. "I've made things difficult for you. I apologize." Clara crossed her arms. "Why are you really here, Mr. Brando? To play games with people's livelihoods?" "I'm here because I've spent 10 years hiding from the world," Lucas said, surprising her with his candor. "And I finally decided it was time to stop." "Hiding? You're a millionaire investor. What could you possibly be hiding from?" Lucas's expression turned serious. "From people who only see the money, not the person." He paused. "My parents died when I was 19. Plane crash, I inherited everything." "I'm sorry," Clara said automatically. "Before the crash, I was just a normal college student. After, suddenly I was surrounded by friends I'd never met before. Women who wouldn't have looked twice at me were suddenly interested. Men wanted to be my business partners. No one saw me. They only saw dollar signs." Clara felt a twinge of guilt, recognizing herself in his description. "So, I disappeared," Lucas continued. "Changed my name back to my mother's maiden name, moved to a modest apartment, lived off a small fraction of the inheritance. The rest and I invested quietly through intermediaries." "For 10 years?" Clara asked, incredulous. Lucas nodded. "It was easier than dealing with the sharks, but eventually the isolation became its own prison." Clara studied him, trying to reconcile the man before her with both the shabby customer from yesterday and the wealthy investor of today. "So, yesterday was what? A test?" "A step back into the world," Lucas corrected. "I wanted to do something for myself. Be A car my father always dreamed of owning, but I wanted to do it as myself, not as my bank account. Clara had the grace to look embarrassed. And I failed your test spectacularly. On the contrary, Lucas smiled slightly. You were the only person who approached me at all. The others couldn't get away fast enough. Clara wasn't sure if that made her feel better or worse. So, what happens now? You've made your point. Now, Lucas said, reaching into Hayes' pocket, I'd like to buy this car. He pulled out the crumpled napkin with his drawing on it. And I'd like you to handle the sale. Clara stared at him in disbelief. After how I treated you. Because despite the pressure from your boss, I saw how you hesitated. You weren't comfortable dismissing me. Lucas handed her the napkin. You kept this, didn't you? Clara nodded, surprised he knew. Why? He asked simply. I'm not sure, Clara admitted. It felt important somehow. Lucas's expression softened. I've gotten good at reading people over the years. It's a survival skill when you're trying to stay anonymous. You're not like the others here. Before Clara could respond, Antonio Vega returned with Roger trailing behind him like an anxious puppy. Lucas, Antonio called. How's it going with Ms. Dantas? Lucas smiled. Very well. I've decided to purchase the SVJ. Ms. Dantas will handle the paperwork. Roger looked like he might faint from relief. Excellent choice, sir. I can assure you that... And, Lucas continued, cutting Roger off again, I'd like Ms. Dantas to be my personal contact for all future dealings with Elite Motors. Antonio nodded approvingly. A wise choice. Ms. Dantas comes highly recommended by our customer satisfaction surveys. Roger's relief turned to confusion. But as manager, I typically handle our VIP clients myself. That W won't be necessary, Lucas said firmly. I prefer to work with Ms. Dantas. Clara tried to keep her expression neutral, but inside her mind was racing. What was happening? Why was this strange, complicated man singling her out? Well then, Antonio clapped his hands together. Let's get the paperwork started. Roger, why don't you show me your sales projections for the quarter while Lucas and Ms. Dantas finalize the purchase? As they walked away, Clara turned Ned to Lucas. Why are you doing this? Lucas looked at her thoughtfully. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm curious about someone, and because I think you need this sale more than you're letting on. Clara tensed. What do you mean? I notice things, Lucas said simply. The way you check your phone between customers, not for social media but with worry. The calculation in your eyes when commission rates are mentioned. The fact that you're willing to tolerate Roger, despite clearly despising him. Clara was unsettled by his observations. You don't know anything about me. I know you're struggling with something important, Lucas replied, and I know what it's like to wear a mask every day. Clara wanted to deny it, but found she couldn't. There was something about Lucas Brando that made her want to be honest, perhaps because he had been honest with her. My brother is sick, she said finally. I need the money for his treatment. Lucas nodded as if confirming a suspicion. That's why you're here dealing with people like Roger. We all do what we have to, Clara said defensively. Yes, we do, Lucas agreed. So let's get this paperwork done. I believe the commission on this sale should help quite a bit. As they walked toward her office, Clara felt off balance. This wasn't how she had expected her day to go. Yesterday, she'd dismissed a shy-looking man. Today, that same man was about to become her biggest sale ever, and possibly her biggest complication. What Clara did not know was that Lucas Brando was about to become much more than a one-time customer, and that the man with no watch was finally ready to start living on borrowed time. News of Lucas Brando's purchase spread through Elite Motors like wildfire. Clara's commission on the sale was the largest in the dealership's history, and overnight, her colleagues' attitudes toward her shifted from casual respect to barely concealed envy. You've hit the jackpot, Sophia whispered, as they stood by the coffee machine a week later. Not just the commission, but personal contact to a millionaire investor. Everyone's talking about it. Clara sipped her coffee, uncomfortable with the attention. It's just business. Is it? Sophia raised an eyebrow. He's been here 3 times this week. each time asking specifically for you. It was true. Since the purchase of the blue sports car, Lucas had returned regularly, ostensibly to discuss customizations and additional features, but the conversations had a way of drifting to personal topics. Clara's background, her dreams, her struggles with Miguel's illness. He's just being thorough about his purchase, Clara insisted. Sophia wasn't buying it. The way he looks at you isn't about business, honey. Beth or Clara could respond. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Miguel had been admitted again after a bad reaction to his medication. Her face must have shown her distress because Sophia immediately grew serious. What's wrong? It's Miguel. I have to go. Clara grabbed her purse. Go, Sophia said. I'll cover for you with Roger. Roger had been walking on eggshells around Clara since Lucas's appearance, afraid she might mention his behavior to the new investor. Clara knew this tentative truce wouldn't last, but for now, it made her life easier. As she rushed toward the exit, Clara nearly collided with someone entering, Lucas. Clara? His smile faded when he saw her expression. What's wrong? My brother, she explained hastily. He's in the hospital. I need to go. I'll drive you, Lucas offered immediately. No, that's not necessary. Please, Lucas said. Let me help. Something in his voice, the simple sincerity of it, made Clara pause. She was used to handling everything alone, shouldering every burden by herself. The idea of accepting help felt foreign, almost wrong. Okay, she said finally. Thank you. They took Lucas's car, not the flashy sports car, but a more modest sedan he used for daily driving. As they navigated through traffic, Clara gripped her phone tightly, checking for updates from the hospital. Tell me about him, Lucas said softly. Your brother. Clara took a deep breath. Miguel has a rare autoimmune condition. It started when he was 16. 5 years of treatments, hospitals, specialists. Some days are good, others are like today. And you're his primary caretaker. Our parents died in a car accident when I was 22. Miguel was just 16. There's no one else. Lucas was quiet for a moment. That's a heavy burden to carry alone. It's not a burden, Clara said automatically. He's my brother. That doesn't make it any less heavy. They fell silent as Lucas pulled into the hospital parking lot. Before Clara could open her door, Lucas reached over and squeezed her hand briefly. He's lucky to have you. Clara felt an unexpected surge of emotion at the simple gesture. How long had it been since someone had offered her comfort instead of the other way around? Inside the hospital, they found Miguel in the emergency room, hooked up to monitors and an IV. Despite his pallor, he managed a weak smile when he saw Clara. You didn't need to rush over, he said. Just another exciting day in the life of Miguel Dantas. Of course I rushed, Clara replied, taking his hand. What happened? Bad reaction to the new medication. Doc says my body rejected it like a bad blind date. Miguel's eyes shifted to Lucas, who was standing a respectful distance away. You brought a Fryan? Clara had almost forgotten Lucas was there. Oh, this is Lucas Brando. He's a client. Lucas stepped forward. I was at the dealership when Clara got the news. I offered to drive her. Miguel studied Lucas with interest. A client drove you to the hospital. Must be some salesperson. There was an awkward moment where no one seemed to know what to say next. Then a doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Ms. Dantas, I'm Dr. Suarez. Your brother is stable. Hi now, but we need to discuss treatment options. The doctor glanced at Lucas. Perhaps in private? I'll wait outside, Lucas said immediately. After he left, Dr. Suarez didn't mince words. The treatment isn't working as well as we'd hoped. The disease is progressing faster than we anticipated. Clara felt the floor shift beneath her. What are our options? There's an experimental treatment at the university hospital. It's showing promising results for our cases like Miguel's. Miguel perked up. That sounds good, right? Dr. Suarez hesitated. The treatment is still in clinical trials. Insurance won't cover it. How much? Clara asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. The full course is around $200,000. The number hit Clara like a physical blow. Even with her recent commission, she was nowhere near that amount. There must be other options, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. We can continue with the current protocol, but I need to be honest. It's becoming less effective. Dr. Suarez's expression was sympathetic but realistic. Think about it, discuss it as a family. I'll check back in tomorrow. After the doctor left, Miguel reached for Clara's hand. Don't look so worried. We'll figure something out. $200,000, Miguel. That's not something we can just figure out. Maybe I don't need the fancy new treatment, Miguel suggested. The regular meds are working, sort of. Clara knew he was lying to make her feel better. The regular medications were barely keeping the symptoms at bay, and the side effects were becoming unbearable. We'll find a way, she promised, though she had no idea how. Get some rest, I'll be right back. In the hallway, Clara found Lucas sitting in the waiting area, scrolling through his phone. He stood when he saw her. How is he? Lucas asked. Clara tried to maintain her composure, but the weight of the doctor's news was too heavy. To her horror, she felt tears welling in her eyes. He needs a treatment we can't afford, she said, her voice breaking. I don't know what to do. Without hesitation, Lucas guided her to a chair sitting beside her. Tell me what happened. Through tears, Clara explained the situation, the experimental treatment, the cost, the ticking cloquet of Miguel's condition. I can help, Lucas said when she finished. Clara stiffened. I didn't tell you this to ask for money. I know you didn't, Lucas replied gently, but I'm offering anyway. I can't accept that, Clara shook her head. It's too much. Why not? Because I barely know you, Clara exclaimed. Because people don't just give away hundreds of thousands of dollars to strangers. Because there would be expectations. Lucas looked genuinely confused. What expectations? Don't play naive, Clara said, suddenly angry. Men like you don't help women like me without wanting something in return. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. You're right that we barely know each other, he finally said. But you're wrong about my intentions. Am I? Clara challenged. Then why would you offer so much money to someone you just met? Because 10 years ago, I had all the money in the world and no one to help me when I was broken, Lucas said simply. Because I know what it's like to watch someone you love slip away and feel powerless to stop it. Clara didn't know how to respond to the raw honesty in his voice. I don't expect anything in return, Clara, Lucas continued, except maybe the chance to get to know you better, as yourself, not as a salesperson trying to please a client. Clara wiped away her tears, embarrassed by her outburst. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. No apology needed. Lucas stood. Think about it. The offer stands, no strings attached. Now can I drive you home, or would you prefer to stay here with Miguel? I should stay, Clara said, but thank you for the ride and for listening. Lucas nodded. Call if you need anything. I mean that. After he left, Clara returned to Miguel's room, her mind spinning with Lucas's offer. Part of her wanted to accept immediately. It would save Miguel's life, after all. But another part, the part that had been fighting and clawing for every inch of ground for years, resisted the idea of such charity. Was that your client I saw leaving? Miguel asked when she entered. Yes, Clara admitted, sitting beside his bed. He seems nice, not your usual type. Clara rolled her eyes. I don't have a type. And he's not. We're not. But you want to be, Miguel finished for her. I can tell. It's complicated, Clara sighed. Life is complicated, Miguel replied. Doesn't mean you should face it alone. Clara changed the subject, unwilling to admit even to herself the confusing feelings Lucas stirred in her. The next morning, Clara arrived at Elite Motors, exhausted from a night spent in the hospital chair. She'd barely settled at her desk when Roger appeared, looking smug. My office, now, he said curtly. Clara followed him, wondering what had put him in such a good mood after days of walking on eggshells around her. Once the door closed, Roger's demeanor changed completely. So, you and Brando seem quite cozy. He's a valued client, Clara replied neutrally. A client you rushed out of the dealership with yesterday, Roger smirked. Very unprofessional, Clara. My brother was in the hospital. Lucas offered to drive me. Lucas, how is it? Not Mr. Brando? Roger leaned back in his chair. Interesting how quickly the professional boundaries drop when millions are involved. Clara felt her temper rising. What's your point, Roger? My point is that your sudden relationship with our investor looks suspicious. Some might even call it opportunistic. There is no relationship, Clara said firmly, and I don't care what some might call it. Roger's smile turned predatory. Antonio Vega might care. The board might care. They're very protective of their new golden boy. Clara realized where this was going. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you friendly advice, Roger said, his tone anything but friendly. Your position here is valuable to you. Hospital bills aren't cheap, are they? It would be a shame if people started questioning your methods of securing sales. Clara stood, fury coursing through her. I've done nothing wrong. Perhaps, Roger shrugged. But perception is reality in this business. And the perception of a saleswoman targeting a wealthy investor for personal gain, well, that could be problematic. Before Clara could respond, there was a knock at the door. Sophia poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but Clara has a call. It's the hospital. Clara left without asking Roger's permission, grateful for the escape. The call was brief. Miguel was being discharged, but would need someone to pick him up. As she ended the call, Clara saw Lucas entering the dealership. Despite her exhaustion and the unsettling conversation with Roger, she felt a small flutter in her chest at the sight of him. Lucas smiled when he saw her. How's Miguel? Being discharged today. I need to pick him up soon. That's good news, Lucas said. And have you thought about my offer? Clara glanced toward Roger's office where he was watching them through the glass. I have, but I can't discuss it here. Lucas followed her gaze, understanding immediately. I see. Perhaps we could talk over dinner tonight, after you get Miguel settled. Clara hesitated. Dinner would make this feel like a date, not a business arrangement. It would blur the lines even further. Just dinner, Lucas assured her, as if reading her thoughts. Nothing more. Before she could answer, Roger emerged from his office, making a beeline for them. Mr. Brando, what a pleasant surprise, Roger exclaimed, all smiles now. I trust Miss Dantas is taking good care of you. She is, Lucas replied coolly. In fact, we were just making plans to discuss some additional business over dinner. Roger's smile faltered slightly. Dinner? How unconventional. I've always found conventional approaches limiting, Lucas said. Wouldn't you agree? Roger forced a laugh. Of course. Whatever works for our most valued client. As Roger retreated, Lucas turned back to Clara. 7 o'clock? I can pick you up. Clara thought about Roger's veiled threats, about the hospital bills piling up, about the lines between professional and personal that were becoming increasingly blurred. Most of all, he thought about Miguel and the treatment that could save his life. 7 o'clock, she agreed finally. But I'll meet you there. Lucas nodded, understanding her need for boundaries. I'll text you the address. As he walked away, Clara couldn't help but wonder what she was getting herself into. Lucas Brando was offering her a lifeline for Miguel, but at what cost? Not in money, she believed him when he said there were no strings attached, but in her carefully constructed independence. For years, she'd relied on no one but herself. Accepting help, especially on this scale, meant admitting she couldn't do it alone. It meant trusting someone else with not just her future, but Miguel's life. What Clara didn't know was that across town, Roger was already making a phone call to Antonio Vega, planting seeds of doubt about the relationship between the company's newest investor and a certain ambitious saleswoman. And as the sun set on the city, the dinner that awaited Clara would be more than just a meal. It would be a turning point that would change everything. The restaurant Lucas had chosen was elegant without being showy, a small Italian place with dim lighting and private booths tucked away from prying eyes. Clara arrived exactly at 7, dressed in a simple black dress she reserved for special client meetings. Lucas was already waiting, rising when he saw her approach. He too had dressed simply, a dark sweater and slacks rather than one of his expensive suits. "You look beautiful," he said as she sat across from him. "Thank you," Clara replied, immediately feeling self-conscious. "How was your day?" "Uneventful compared to yours, I imagine. How's Miguel?" "Settled at home, frustrated with being sick, but putting on a brave face." Clara unfolded her napkin, needing something to do with her hands. "He asked about you." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Did he? What did he want to know?" "If you were single, for one thing," Clara admitted with a small laugh. "He thinks he's being subtle about playing matchmaker." "And what did you tell him?" "That it wasn't relevant," Clara said, then added hastily, "Not that I'm not curious, but I am," Lucas said simply. "Single, that is. Have been for a long time." The waiter arrived with menus, providing a welcome interruption to the Suda NLI personal conversation. After they ordered, Lucas leaned forward slightly. "I imagine you have questions for me," he said. Clara nodded. "About your offer, yes. It's incredibly generous, but I need to understand why. I told you yesterday." "You told me you know what it's like to lose someone and feel powerless," Clara interrupted gently. "But there's more to it than that." Lucas was quiet for a moment, swirling the water in his glass. "Do you know what the hardest part about inheriting millions at 19 was?" Clara shook her head. "Everyone had an angle. Everyone wanted something. The lawyers, the distant relatives who suddenly appeared, the friends who weren't really friends." Lucas's voice grew distant. "I learned quickly that in most people's eyes I wasn't Lucas anymore. I was just a bank account with legs." "So you disappeared," Clara said, understanding dawning. "You became anonymous to prot ECT yourself." "Yes, and it worked in a way. No more fake friends, no more gold diggers. But isolation has its own cost." Their first course arrived, a simple caprese salad they'd both ordered. Clara waited until the waiter had gone before speaking again. "So why come back now? Why step into the spotlight again?" Lucas's smile was tinged with sadness. "Because eventually I realized I'd built my own prison. The walls I put up to keep out the people who only wanted my money also kept out everyone else." "That sounds lonely," Clara said softly. "It was. Is." Lucas met her eyes. "The day I came to the dealership was my first step out. I wanted to buy that car for my father's memory, yes, but I also wanted to try being myself again, without the shield of wealth or anonymity." "And I shut you down," Clara winced. "But not before seeing me, even for a moment," Lucas corrected. "That sketch I gave you, you kept it. Even though you thought I was just some dreamer wasting your time, something made you keep it." Clara hadn't thought about it that way before. "I suppose I did." "That's why I'm offering to help Miguel," Lucas said, his voice earnest. "Because for the first time in 10 years, someone responded to me, not my money or lack of it. And when I saw your face at the hospital, how much you love your brother, how hard you're fighting for him, I just wanted to help he." The main course arrived, momentarily halting their conversation. Clara used the time to process Lucas's words. Could it really be that simple? A lonely man with the means to help, wanting to make a connection? $200,000 is a lot of money, she said finally. "Not to me," Lucas replied without arrogance, just stating a fact. "My parents left me more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. It's just been sitting there growing. What good is it if I can't use it to help someone who needs it?" Clara took a deep breath. "If, and this is still a big if, I accept your help, it would have to be a loan. With terms, interest, everything legally documented." Lucas looked surprised. "You don't have to." "I do," Clara insisted. "For my own peace of mind. I need to know this is a business arrangement, not something else." Something flickered in Lucas's eyes. Disappointment, perhaps? But he nodded. "If that's what you need, of course, I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. Very generous terms, though." "Thank you," Clara said, relief washing over her. "You have no idea what this means for Miguel." "I think I do," Lucas said softly. They finished their meal with lighter conversation, Lucas sharing stories of his parents, Clara talking about her early days at the dealership. For a few hours, They were just two people getting to know each other, the weight of their arrangement temporarily set aside. As they finished dessert, Lucas checked his watch, a simple timepiece Clara hadn't seen him wear before. "You're wearing a watch," she observed. Lucas glanced at it with a small smile. "First time in 10 years. It was my father's." "Why today?" "Because it felt like time was starting to move forward again." The simple statement carried a weight that made Clara's heart beat faster. There was something happening between them, something neither had planned for. "I should get home to Miguel," she said, suddenly needing space to think. Lucas nodded. "Of course, I'll call you tomorrow about the paperwork." Outside the restaurant, Lucas insisted on walking her to her car. The night air was cool, and Clara found herself walking closer to him than necessary. "Thank you for dinner," she said as they reached her car. "And for everything else." "Thank you for trusting Jimmy," Lucas replied. "I know it isn't easy for you." There was a moment, a breath really, where they stood looking at each other, and Clara felt the world shift slightly on its axis. Would he kiss her? Did she want him to? Before either could decide, Clara's phone rang, breaking the spell. It was Sophia. "I have to take this," Clara said, both relieved and disappointed by the interruption. Lucas nodded and stepped back. "Good night, Clara." "Good night, Lucas." As he walked away, Clara answered the phone. "Sophia, what's wrong?" Sophia's voice was urgent. "You need to come in early tomorrow. Roger's up to something. I overheard him on the phone with Antonio Vega. He was talking about you and Lucas, saying something about inappropriate relationships and conflict of interest." Clara's stomach dropped. "He's trying to get me fired. Worse, I think he's trying to convince Antonio that you're manipulating Luke as for money." The accusation hit too close to home. Wasn't that what she'd just agreed to over dinner? Taking money from Lucas even as a loan? "Clara, are you there?" "I'm here," Clara said. "Thanks for the warning. I'll handle it." But as she drove home, Clara wondered exactly how she would handle it. If Antonio believed Roger's insinuations, she could lose her job. More importantly, Miguel could lose his chance at the treatment he desperately needed. Next morning, Clara arrived at Elite Motors an hour early, determined to confront Roger before he could do more damage. But as she walked through the doors, she knew she was too late. Antonio Vega and Lucas were already there, along with Roger, who wore a smug expression that made Clara's blood boil. "Ms. Dantas," Antonio greeted her formally, "please join us in the conference room." Clara followed them, catching Lucas's eye as they walked. His expression was unreadable, which worried her more than anything. Inside the conference room, Antonio got straight to the point. "Ms. Dantas, serious concerns have been raised about your professional relationship with Mr. Brando." "By whom?" Clara asked, though she already knew. "That's not important," Roger interjected. "What matters is maintaining the integrity of our business relationships." "I think it's very important," Lucas said, speaking for the first time. His voice was cold in a way Clara hadn't heard before. "I'd like to know who's making accusations about me and Ms. Dantas." Roger shifted uncomfortably. "Not accusations, merely observations about a potentially inappropriate situation." Antonio cleared his throat. "The concern, Ms. Dantas, is that you may be using your position to pursue personal benefits from our investor." "That's ridiculous," Clara said firmly. "My relationship with Mr. Brando has been nothing but professional." "Yet you had dinner with him last night," Roger pointed out triumphantly. "Hardly a professional setting." Clara felt trapped. Denying the dinner would be a lie. Explaining its purpose would reveal Miguel's situation and Lucas's offer to help, which would only strengthen Roger's case. "We did have dinner," Lucas confirmed calmly, "to discuss business." "What kind of business?" Roger pressed. Lucas fixed Roger with a stare that made the manager shrink back slightly. "Private business, Mr. Mendez, which frankly is none of your concern." Antonio looked uncomfortable. "Lucas, you must understand our position. The company has protocols." "The company," Lucas interrupted, "seems more concerned with policing its employees' dinner choices than addressing the real problems in this dealership." "What problems?" Antonio asked, surprised. Lucas turned to Clara. Would you like to tell him or shall I? Clara understood immediately. This was her chance to expose Roger's behavior, the sexual harassment, the intimidation, the toxic work environment he'd created. But it was also a risk. Her word against the managers, and if she lost... Mr. Vega, Clara began carefully, I believe Mr. Mendez has concerns about my relationship with Mr. Brando because he himself has repeatedly crossed professional boundaries with me and other female employees. Roger's face turned red. That's a lie. She's trying to deflect from her own inappropriate behavior. Is it a lie? Lucas asked quietly. Because I've spent the past week observing this dealership. I've spoken with several employees. I've reviewed the complaints that were mysteriously lost before reaching HR. Antonio's expression darkened. What complaints? Sexual harassment, Lucas said bluntly. Intimidation, creating a hostile work environment, using his position to pressure female employees for favors. Roger stood abruptly. This is slander. You can't prove any of this. You... Actually, Sophia said from the doorway, where she stood with 3 other female employees, we can. What followed was a devastating litany of Roger's misdeeds, spanning years of inappropriate behavior that had gone unchecked because of his father's ownership stake in the dealership. By the time they finished, Antonio's face was grim. Roger, wait in my office. We'll discuss your future with the company privately. After Roger stormed out, Antonio turned to Clara. I owe you an apology, Ms. Dantas. It seems I've been misled about the situation here. It's not your fault, Clara said graciously. Roger was very careful about who knew what. Antonio nodded, then looked at Lucas. I assume you had a hand in gathering this information. Lucas shrugged. I merely asked the right questions. The employees here did the rest. After Antonio left to deal with Roger, Clara turned to Lucas. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Lucas said, surprising her. There's something I need to tell you and you might not like it. Clara's heart sank. Was he rescinding his offer to help Miguel? What is it? She asked, bracing herself. I've been thinking about our arrangement, Lucas began. The loan for Miguel's treatment. And, Clara prompted, and he hesitated. I can't do it, Lucas said finally. Clara felt the floor drop out from under her. After everything, he was backing out. I see, she said stiffly, fighting back tears. No, you don't, Lucas said gently. I can't do a loan because I don't want a business arrangement with you, Clara. Then what do you want? Clara asked, confusion mixing with her disappointment. I want to help Miguel, because he matters to you and you matter to me. Not as a client, not as a business contact, as you, just Clara. Clara stared at him, trying to process his words. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want loan paperwork and interest rates between us. I'm saying I want to help without conditions because I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Clara felt dizzy with the implications. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough, Lucas said simply. I know you're brave and loyal and fierce in protecting those you love. I know you've carried burdens alone that would crush most people. I know that when you look at me, you see me. Not my money, not what I can do for you, but me. Clara didn't know what to say. Her feelings for Lucas had been growing, yes, but love. It seemed too fast, too convenient given the circumstances. I need time, she said finally. This is all happening so quickly. Lucas nodded, disappointment clear in his eyes, but respect winning out. I understand. The offer for Miguel stands, no matter what. No loans, no conditions. Just one human being helping another. I can't accept that, Clara said. Yes, you can, Lucas insisted. For Miguel, if not for yourself. Before Clara could respond, her phone rang. It was the hospital. Miguel had been readmitted, his condition deteriorating. Rapidly. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of hospital corridors and doctors' consultations. Miguel needed the experimental treatment immediately, or his organs would begin to fail. There was no more time for pride or hesitation. Lucas handled everything. The payments, the arrangements to transfer Miguel to the university hospital, even making sure Clara had food and coffee during her vigil at her brother's bedside. Why are you doing all this? Clara asked him late one night as they sat in the hospital waiting room, while Miguel underwent the first treatment. "Because that's what people do when they care about each other," Lucas replied simply. "They show up." In that moment, something shifted inside Clara. The walls she'd built over years of self-reliance and disappointment began to crumble. Lucas wasn't asking her to be anything other than herself. He wasn't demanding gratitude or repayment. He was just there, steady and patient. 2 weeks later, Miguel showed the first signs of improvement. The experimental treatment was working. Clara cried when the doctor delivered the news, and Lucas held her while she did, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "He's going to be okay," Lucas whispered against her hair. "He's going to be okay." As Miguel recovered, Clara returned to work. Roger had been fired, and to her surprise, Antonio had offered her the manager position. "You know the business better than anyone," he explained, "and you have the respect of the staff. Plus, a certain investor spoke very highly of you." Life began to find a new rhythm. Miguel grew stronger each day. Clara excelled in her new role at the dealership. And Lucas was a constant, patient presence, never pushing, never demanding, simply waiting for Clara to decide what she wanted. One evening, a month after Miguel's treatment began, Clara found herself at the same Italian restaurant where she and Lucas had first discussed his offer to help. This time, she had invited him. "What's the occasion?" Lucas asked, as they were seated at the same quiet booth. Clara reached into her purse and pulled out a small box, sliding it across the table to him. Lucas looked at it curiously before opening it. Inside was a watch, a simple, elegant timepiece with a brown leather band. "You bought me a watch?" he asked, confused. "You said you stopped wearing a watch when your parents died because time stood still for you," Clara explained. "You started wearing your father's watch again because time was moving forward. This one is from me because—" She took a deep breath. "Because I want to be part of your future." Lucas looked up from the watch, hope dawning in his eyes. "Clara, I'm not good at this," she continued quickly. "Relying on others, accepting help, opening up. But these past weeks, watching you with Miguel, seeing how you care without expecting anything in return, I've learned something important." "What's that?" Lucas asked softly. "That sometimes the bravest thing isn't standing alone. Sometimes it's letting someone stand with you." Clara reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm falling in love with you too, Lucas. And it terrifies me, but I'm tired of being afraid." Lucas Tilly squeezed her hand, his eyes never leaving hers. "We can be terrified together." "I'd like that." Clara smiled through sudden tears. Lucas slipped off his father's watch and put on the one Clara had given him. "Perfect fit," he said, though they both knew he wasn't just talking about the watch. 3 days later, Clara left the dealership after closing, exhausted but satisfied with another successful day as manager. As she walked to her car, she spotted Lucas's car parked across the street. He was sitting inside, watching the dealership through the window. In his hand was the napkin with the car drawing, now worn and creased from being carried in his wallet. Clara paused, unseen by Lucas. She knew he was giving her space, respecting her independence even as they moved towards something deeper. She took out her phone and called him. Through the car window, she saw him answer. "I can see you," she said without preamble. Lucas looked up, startled, then spotted her standing by her car. Even from a distance, she could see his smile. "Busted," he admitted. "I was in the neighborhood." "Were you going to come in?" Clara asked. There was a pause before Lucas answered. "I wasn't sure if I should." Clara understood then. Despite his declaration of love, despite everything they'd shared, Lucas was still uncertain of his place in her life. After a decade of isolation, he was still learning how to reconnect. "Come in next time," Clara said softly. "I'm always happy to see you, even at work, especially at work. The new manager has a very relaxed visitor policy." Lucas laughed, and the sound warmed Clara's heart. "I'll remember that." As they hung up, Clara watched Lucas tuck the napkin drawing back into his wallet. A reminder of their beginning, a shabby-looking customer and a dismissive saleswoman, both hiding their true selves from the world. Now they were finding their way forward together, no longer hiding behind appearances or fears. The man with no watch had found his time had come at last, and Clara had found that sometimes the things we truly want are right in front of us, if only we have the courage to see them. Lucas looked up and their eyes met across the distance. He raised his hand in a small wave, and Clara waved back, a promise of things to come. Then she walked toward his car and toward the future they would build together, one day at a time.